Go.
Hello, my people. It's your Negro with aptitude and host of the Blackboard, Mickee Lee. Happy Money Mondays. I sure hope your week is off to a great start. This week, it is my immense pleasure to bring to you a gentleman, a fellow YouTuber that I just recently became acquainted with. His YouTube channel is power-packed with all kinds of gems on how to start your business, how to expand your business, how to improve your business, and it's primarily from the point of view of taking steps that will get your business launched, taking steps that will continue your business, and also making sure that you've got your back office in place. So what is your back office? Your back office is your basic business finances. So while you're working hard to make the money, this gentleman is showing you tips and tricks and skills you can easily acquire for free, because this is on his YouTube channel. He's putting out this great content and free information about how to keep the money that you're earning. So you hear people say, get that bag, but getting that bag means nothing if you don't know how to keep it. So with that short introduction, I want to introduce you to Tyrone Gregory, also known as the Self-Employed Tax Guy. He's this week's guest on Money Mondays.
All right. Hello, my people. It's your Negro with aptitude and host of the Blackboard, Mickee Lee. You guys, listen, I try to bring it to you. I try to, cook it up in a pot, stir it, and serve it up just right for you. And today is one of those days. Welcome to Money Mondays. I hope your week has started off really fine, really great. As you know, our Money Monday series celebrates Black and African entrepreneurs. We talk about all things related to getting that bag and keeping that bag. Now, speaking of keeping that bag, this brother right here, wait till I tell you about this brother. Okay, I got to tell you a little story. So I have been deciding whether or not I was going to get an LLC. I have other friends, colleagues, especially in my daytime business, right, of pet services. They all have LLC. So I said, well, maybe I should have an LLC too. So I floated the idea around for a long time, asking different people, couldn't get a straight answer about it. Asked my tax preparer, long time, and she doesn't always give me the straight answer either, the all the information that I need. But she was like, get an LLC if you just want to spend $800 in the state of California. Do that.
Absolutely.
So I said, okay, I don't want to do that. But you know what the Bible says? You need 2 or 3 witnesses to help you really make sure that what the decision you're about to make makes sense. So I'm just flipping through, and all of a sudden this brother, this one right here, came up on the screen and he was talking about what? LLCs. Now, what did the brother say? Pretty much, get that LLC if you just want to spend $800 in the state of California.
So
Ding, 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 ding. I wish I was in my office portion right now. I wish I was in my office because then I would show you guys on my workboard where that box get an LLC has been check marked now because I don't need to do no more research on it. I don't need to get an LLC. Speaking of which, if y'all are thinking about getting an LLC, I want y'all to check out this brother's video on that. I'm going to leave it in the descriptions box. Make sure you check it out because that he gives such a step-by-step explanation of what an LLC is, how to figure out when you need one, how to figure out when you don't. And I had already watched at least 6 or 7 other videos on LLCs before I came to him, and I finally felt like I knew that I didn't need one. Okay? And I'm Mickey's not slow. You know I'm not slow, but when people don't give me all the right information. Anyway, so now on that long introduction, you know how when you're getting ready to start a business, you wish you had an uncle cousin or a cousin uncle who knew the ins and outs of business and could help you put it down the right way? Well, today on the Blackboard on our Money Mondays, I want to welcome our own favorite cousin uncle. Or is it uncle cousin?
Uncle cousin, yeah. I'm both, right? I'm both. That's what it is. I'm both.
Our favorite uncle cousin, Tyrone Gregory, better known as the self-employed tax guy. Hello, Tyrone.
Man, so honored, so happy. That was wow. I've never been introduced like that before. That was amazing, right? I feel good now. I feel like I can float. Yeah. Thank you for that.
So you know what you have to do when you go on other people's shows. You know how they say the celebrities have their list of demands and requirements. You say, watch Mickee Lee's introduction and make sure you do the same thing.
You have set the standard. Absolutely. Set the standard for me. I'm like, yo, you got to go. If y'all going to introduce me, you got to watch my girl's show because that's how it needs to be done.
That's exactly right. So welcome to the Blackboard and Money Mondays, Tyrone. We're so glad
so honored to be here. Thank you so very much for allowing me just to be another voice on such a very profound, very needed show. Thank you. I'm honored.
Well, we are honored to have you. Just fabulous. So we're going to jump right in it, folks. We're going to get on with our interview here. And one of the first things, we like to do when we do Money Mondays and we have these entrepreneurs here, there's always a backstory, right? Nobody just wakes up and goes from 1 year old to a self-employed tax guy. So fill us in, Uncle Cousin. Who was Tyrone before the self-employed tax guy?
Oh man. Well, I'm gonna bring it up to the earlier years, right? Yes. I wasn't always into taxes. Like I honestly had no inkling, no desire to be in tax preparation at all. I've always been a hands-on, working with my hands kind of individual. And I was in construction before I was doing taxes, right? Like that's a very dynamic pivot, right? From construction to taxes. But what happened, was making some decent amount of money in construction. I've always enjoyed entrepreneurship. So it was my own construction company. And, what happened, I didn't know anything about taxes, right? I was focused on the business of constructing and building and doing that. And so my wife's brother recommended that we use his tax preparer. And we went through that and it ended up being a nightmare, right? We got all kind of notices from the IRS and had to do all this proving. And it just was the worst experience as far as tax preparation goes that I had ever experienced in life at all. So I told my wife, I said, before we go through that again, I'll learn how to do it myself and I'll prepare our taxes. And so I signed up for the local course here and went through it, and it just amazed it. It completely blew my mind of how much stuff that we are not taught, right? As a people, as individuals, it's like, wow, nobody sits down and explains this to us. We simply just go hand our documentation and our paperwork to people and say, do this for me. And nobody explains what's going on. And so I was blown. And I still have my construction company, was working. And my instructor, he was like, you're good at this. You ought to consider actually working in this industry. And I was like, no, I don't want to. I got my own business going on. I'm doing things here. But then he finally convinced me to give it a try. And after that first year, I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. Like, man, because my focus, my favorite customer were the self-employed. So every time I had a self-employed customer, I'm like, man, did you know this? Did you know that? Oh, nobody told you this? Well, this is what you need to do. And then as I started to develop those relationships with the self-employed client base, I started to dive more into the tax code to discover more of what we can do and things that people don't normally tell us, like, oh, well, if the tax code said this and then you apply that, well, that means this. Oh, that's a whole new strategy that we didn't know. And then I just completely let go of the construction company altogether and went full-blown tax.
All right. And that is to our benefit. Like I told you, you need an uncle, you need a cousin, you need an uncle cousin.
Absolutely.
Figure it out, break it down to you over your greens, break it down to you over your smoked ham, break it down to you over your candied yams, and just kind of stir it up for you.
Hungry.
And serve it up to you so you can understand it. You see what I mean?
Yes,
and this is the reason why I stopped on his video, because I told y'all I had watched 6 or 7 other videos and I'm not slow. Now there are some things that, I'm like, what? But then for the most part, I'm not slow. But I watched those other videos and I was like, but I don't understand. Do I need an LLC or not?
Right.
This brother came on and he did his video and he was like, now I know what you're thinking. LLC looks good after your name. I know. And especially for y'all that don't like to go to college, LLC looks good. But, all right. And he broke it down just like a good uncle cousin should. Now, I also want to say something else. A brother in construction, I thought they stopped hiring y'all about 40 years ago.
You know what? It's funny you say that, because it was amazing that when I started the company and I started to advertise and I landed the job. One of the biggest jobs I landed was when Washington Mutual was bought out by Chase, and they converted all the Washington Mutual to Chase. So I would go in and paint. We were in charge of the conversion, and we were, because, of course I brought a bunch of my people with me, and we were like the only African Americans there, and they was looking at us like, man, we don't see y'all no more in this industry. And I was like, well, we here now. But that is true. We really don't dominate that industry like we used to.
And I want you all to understand, that's the reason why the Blackboard exists, because I want you to understand there's a lot of dynamics that go on to us existing the way you see us exist now. We are wonderful people, a glorious people. As I've told you many times on this channel, I believe we're the greatest people God ever made. And it's not just because of our singing, dancing, and all of this other kind of stuff. It's the type of heart that he put into us that we don't mind carrying other people. However, he told us to be as wise as the serpent and as gentle as the dove. We got that gentle as the dove part down pat. This show, this channel, is to make us as wise as the serpent. Okay? Because there's lots of little details, legislation that we co-signed on, social movements we've co-signed on, that have taken food right out of our mouths, that have taken job opportunities right out of our mouths, that have taken money right out of our communities, and we co-signed on it. Construction is an example of that. But I'm not going to digress. We're here with our uncle cousin. Y'all will watch another show where I'll break it down to you. All right. So now we've got Tyrone Gregory, before the self-employed tax guy. He had his own construction company, was working with his hands. Numbers weren't even in the picture. So I want y'all to catch that, because a lot of times you think you have to go on this one straight path and you have to figure it out by 18 and nothing else is going to change. No, the landscape of employment, the landscape of making money is so different now. I am almost 56. Now, if someone had told me that when I was 20, that I would be a pet service business owner, wouldn't have believed it. Because when I was 20, you get a job someplace for the government, for one of the big corporations, and you pretty much work there for 20, 30, 40 years. You don't follow an entrepreneurial thing. That's for when you retire. But now, here we have our own uncle cousin who's showing us, nope, we can do it many different ways. And all along the way, how do we keep that bag? Okay, so now as I said, we have our uncle cousin. He has gotten from construction. He is now trained to become a tax preparer. So let's pivot the conversation there. What did that training look like? How long did it take?
It really took. So the training was the basic, right? They really, in order for you to get into the tax preparation industry, especially here in California, you have to have so many hours worth of training, and then they allow you to practice. So the training was maybe like 3 months worth of training. Really wasn't that long. It's not like it's a 4-year type thing. But again, that's just the basics. And what they teach you is the basics from federal and state. And then once you do that, and I'm not going to say that it was like easy, like it was only a couple of months, 1 4-year college, but still in that 3 months, there was moments in that I was like, okay, I ain't gonna make it, right? So it still was a challenging couple of months, but once you pass, you get in. Excuse me. It's kind of like with anything. You can learn, you can read the book, but until you actually get into it, until you actually do it, you really don't have that fundamental understanding. So the training book-wise was good, learned a lot, but it's when I started to actually deal with the client, learning what questions to ask and learning how those questions translated into what I have to enter in, because we have this misconception that tax preparation is just entering in the data. And I've had to explain this before, like you don't pay me for what I do, you pay me for what I know. Right. So that's a distinctive difference. And that was a very interesting process. Like I said, so they taught me the basics, but it's up to the individual to go further in their knowledge. So that's what the process was like for me, is like learning it, really blowing my mind as to, all these tax laws, what you can do, what you can't do. One thing I did learn is taxes is not about numbers. Even though, right, like we deal with money, but taxes is not about numbers. Taxes is 90% theory. What you can do versus what you cannot do, why you can't do that, why you can do that. Here is this option. Well, if you go this route, then you can't do that. Like a if this, then that. That's what taxes is about. People be like, oh, I don't want to learn taxes because I'm not good at math. Taxes, if you really look at a tax form, is very simple addition and subtraction. That's it. The rest of it is why you can and why you cannot.
Let's see how simple he breaks it down. Now, this means that us small business owners that are following the guidance of our uncle cousin here, we'll keep our bag, unlike some of those celebrities. All right. So now, once you become a tax preparer, what kind of earnings can you expect?
Oh man, that is one thing that I learned early on about tax preparation is within that 4-month time period, you can make enough that the most people make in an entire year. So, there's obviously different levels. If you want to go into tax preparation and you want to just get that experience and you want to start at the retail level where you're working for one of the major tax preparation retail companies, you can earn even within that 4-month period enough to last you for a year. So I would say maybe on an entry level, you can within 4 months make anywhere from say 20,000 up. I know people that make 400,000 a year doing tax preparation. But like with anything, even if you're working for a retail tax prep company, you have to build your own client base. So the amount that you make is 100% based upon the effort that you put in building your client base.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And so those of you who are, you already know this, if you're self-employed, we need clients, right? So
Absolutely.
in a situation like what we're dealing right now with the health situation, health challenges that the country is going through, you know that now not only do you need your clients, you need to be able to pivot to either keep your clients, or you're going to need to pivot to get new clients. So I'm in a situation in my pet services business where I'm actually going to have to pivot because of the work from home model and my lead business line being dog walks. But a lot of people are getting dogs that we're calling the lockdown dogs. And that's good, except for a lot of them are untrained. So we don't want the dogs returned to shelters or kicked out of the house or whatever. So I'll have to pivot more to my leash training, right? So that's an example, a real life example of how that goes about. All right, good. So now we know that being a tax preparer is something, as our uncle cousin here, Tyrone, just said, you can earn enough in a few months. Let's break down those few months. So I would guess that the most busiest months for you would be January through probably May, and then maybe August through October, something like that.
Yeah. And what I was saying a few months, I was literally thinking that January through May, those are your peak, right? That's the biggest window of opportunity, right? Because that's where you can make the absolute most of your money within that 4 to 5 month period. But taxes is, and again, this is based on the individual and what the individual want to do. When you get into tax prep, is not just tax preparation that you can do. There's so many other things that you can embody with that tax knowledge, right? Like, so for me, I decided to become an enrolled agent. So once you become an enrolled agent, now I can do audit representation. I can help people before the IRS if they're having issues. I can step in and be that mediator. I can do tax planning, right, to help you reduce your future tax burdens. We can talk about that. There's so many other things besides just tax prep that once you learn it, you can do all kind of things. Like when we talk about pivoting, right, that's me learning taxes has now led to a byproduct of me having a YouTube channel. That's how you discover me. It was like there's so many other things that you can do, especially to generate revenue once you have the knowledge of the tax code.
Excellent. And by the way, you mentioned earlier that you had been through a nightmare with the IRS, and I've been through that too. Where people say, "Oh, just find my tax guy," and the next thing I know, the IRS had shut down my checking account. They had seized my checking account. So I've been through all that. But one thing I do also want, you Negroes with aptitude out there to know is that this is the kind of solid community building career that Tyrone is talking about. This is what built our Wall Streets all around the country. So we had our own grocery stores, we had our own insurance people, we had our own tax preparers, I'm going to say tax career folk, because as you just said, there's a whole lot you can do with it. We had our own, and not everybody's a rapper, not everybody's a basketball player, and even those who are, it's a short shelf life, especially if that's all you got. If you don't know how to take that skill and pivot it into other skills, into other byproducts, then you're going to be stuck when you either get fired, when you break a leg. I don't want you to break a leg, but you understand what I'm saying, using the athletes, right? Using the athletes. So the reason that I love to bring you these grown, but not, I think grown and sexy, because who is the sexiest man alive? The one that can bring some money into my house. Okay. Y'all can look at the cover of People magazine or whoever y'all want, but the sexiest man alive to me is the one that brings money up into my home. Okay. And what I want y'all to understand is these are grown careers that used to be the careers that permeated our community: the doctors, the lawyers, the teachers, the nurses, the tax preparers, grocery man, et cetera, et cetera. And for those of you who want to rebuild our communities, these are the careers that do that. Okay, so I wanted to just make sure and point that out. All right, now let's pivot our conversation a little bit. And we're going to go into the top 5 mistakes that people make when they start a business. Now, before you answer that, I want y'all to know, again, I'm going to leave leave a link to the LLC video alone, but I mean, in the description box. But once you start watching that video, I can guarantee you're going to watch others of him, because you are a very gifted communicator and a gifted teacher. And I've watched some of your videos about the mistakes that people make in business. And even though I'm already in business, when you pivot, some of that is like starting anew. So what are some of the top 5 mistakes people make when they start business?
Oh man, great question. And from my experience and from what I've dealt with in helping people out, I'll start with the number 1 mistake that people make is failing to start. To me, that right there is like the bone of my contention right there. When people, I see such greatness, such passion, such a great idea, but there's a failure to start. And I think part of the reason that people fail to start is because there's an information overload out there happening right now. They're inundated with so much information, they don't know which way to go. So the first mistake is not starting, right? You always want to start. There's a principle that says the first to market is the one normally who dominates the market. So the longer you wait to start your business, the greater it's going to be to run that business, the greater the challenge is going to be. So that'd be number 1. Number 2, the mistakes that I see is like I just said, information overload, because we consume a lot of information thinking that we need all of these things to get started. So we consume a lot of information that we do not use. That is one of the second mistakes that people do is consume information they will never use. So my counter to that is like, consume information, put it into action. Do that first, put it into action, and then if it works, good, continue to work on it. But don't think that you have to know everything in order to get started. So number 2 would be, I guess, perfection, right? Because we think we have to know everything. Number 3, I would say, is lack of your business financials. As entrepreneurs, we know what we know, right? Like we only know that skill that we have. When I was in construction, I only knew construction. I didn't really care about the back office. I didn't care about keeping receipts. I didn't care about where my money was going. As long as I saw profit, I was okay. But that is a mistake, because if we are unaware what's happening in our back office, we are unaware what's happening with our finances, we can't control it, because we have no idea what's going on with it. We can't understand, well, this month is where I made the most money. Yeah, even though it carried me, but this month is where I made the most money. What was happening in that area? Is there something that I can make a repeatable process of to continue that? But we don't have those conversations with ourselves because we're not tracking our finances. So that's one of the, I will say number 3 is that, most business owners don't really track the finances the way that they do. Number 4 is fear. and I get it. Even though I say, being scared is a mistake, I completely understand that fear is a natural occurrence, but also fear is what really hinders us from doing like the key word you just said, pivoting. We're scared because if we see something and it's like, it didn't work the way I wanted it to work, so nothing's going to work, I quit. That's a mistake. No. I'll raise my hand and say, I started my own tax practice January 1st, 2020. March 2020, COVID hit, right? And I saw my calendar go from being completely packed to completely empty. And trust, it was a scary, first year on my own, 1,000% self-employed. Here I am, very scary, but I had to look and face that fear because as entrepreneurs, we don't panic, we pivot. And so by me pivoting, switch to something.
If you don't make that t-shirt, I will. We don't panic, we pivot.
Absolutely. That is my saying. We don't panic, we pivot because we have to. But if we let fear take over, we quit. And that is a mistake because there's been so many people that have been just right there, but they didn't stay in long enough and they quit and missed an entire opportunity. And then the one of the biggest mistakes, I guess the last mistake I would say that I see people making in business is, not really knowing their worth. When it comes to business, you're in business to make money. Let's just be transparent, right? You're usually in business to make money, but because of fear, right? You figure, I'm going to devalue myself because I want the sale. I'm going to reduce my pricing so I can get the sale, so I can survive. Because if I really put my value based on my true worth, there's going to be nobody who's going to buy it. And that's an absolute mistake. I was listening to talk radio this morning, and there was a lady who said that she spent $20,000 on a life coaching program. $20,000 on a life coaching program. And it was a talk show radio with a lawyer, and she was trying to figure out, how can I get some of my money back? And he was like, you shouldn't have spent it in the first place.
Right.
20,000. But there are people out there that if you know your worth and you put your worth out there, they will purchase your value. So don't ever devalue yourself.
Fantastic. So we're just going to go back over those real quick. For the slow people. So number one, start. So let's break that down just a little bit. And I'm going to use myself as an example because I'm a serial entrepreneur, so to speak, in that I've never taken the straight ahead road that my other family members, friends, and so forth and so on. But I've wound up at the same place financially as they are. Right. So if you put us both on paper, we're worth the same amount. All right. But how do you start? Right. When you have an entrepreneurial brain, the thing is you have to break it down into baby steps and the steps that you can swallow each day. Right. And so I heard you talk about on your video last night where you were saying you had you went to the 99-cent store and you got little board that you put on the wall, and you have one column to do, the second column am doing, and the third column done. So I should have set this interview up in my office, and I would have shown you guys how I have boards that are similar, right? And so mine usually has a box and it's a check mark when I'm done with it. And yes, you do get a thrill out of putting a check mark. You do get a thrill out of moving it from one column to do into the column done. It's a thrill.
Absolutely. Yes,
and as you said, it's psychological. It's psychology. And I want to tell you that all of life is psychological. all of it.
Yes.
If you are reading your
Yeah,
Bible,
absolutely.
you'll understand this whole reality is God's psychology going out, right? And
Yes.
he's testing these creatures known as humans, and most of us don't even have the psychology to know that it's ongoing after this realm, right? So it's all psychology. And it's number one, start. So you got an idea, break it down into 3 steps, break those 3 steps down if you need to, and decide Monday we're doing this, Tuesday we're doing this, Wednesday we're doing that. Okay. The next one you said was, I'm probably going to get them out of order, but the next one you said was information overload. Okay.
Yes.
In my pet services business, I'll tell you, I probably spent about $2,000-3,000 in training, because I felt like, oh, I need to know animal behavior. Oh, I need to know this. I need to know that. Well, guess what? A lot of the walkers and most my competitors, they ain't got none of the training. Okay, they just said, I'm gonna walk your dog, and people started paying them, right, to walk their dog. So yes, information is good, as he said, but if this is really your passion, then one thing I'm going to suggest to you, and this is what I do on Sunday mornings. Sunday, my business is closed, but the office is open. And you spend a couple of hours each day learning about your field, right? So maybe you don't need a couple of hours, but you put on your calendar, your work calendar, okay, 15 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it is you need, an hour, I'm going to read about blah, blah, blah. So now you're not wasting time not starting. You're just building in your ongoing education into your launch plan. Okay.
Right.
The third thing that he said was, what was third thing? Oh, fear. Yes. Okay. Now this year, I've told y'all, 2020 is more than a number. The Lord doesn't do things the way we do them. So 2020 is clear vision. Right? It's crystal clear vision. It's clarity. When you wear glasses like we do, you know the difference between a little bit of a off number and another number. You got number 1 or number 2. Would you like number 1 or number 2? Which one is better sight, right? 2020 is that. Okay.
Right.
And all over throughout this year, every single day, it seems, the Lord is trying to wake us up and show us clarity. Right.
Right.
Fear can stop you from seeing things. You ever been so scared that your vision starts to fog up? Well, that's what this quote unquote pandemic is about. And it's who are you going to rely on, right? And so in my case, I already had, coming into this year, I already had a number of clients go down because they put their dogs down, they moved. Some of them had babies, so they returned home. So I already got into the year knowing that I was going to have to rebuild the client list or a portion of the client list by March, but I was still sustained, right? By March, however, 80% loss, just like that.
Wow.
People telling me you're part of the family, and by March, it was gone. And I'm not dealing with, paycheck to paycheck people. I'm dealing with people where the average income in the house is $100,000 or more. I'm dealing with people where the dog, the cat is a part of the family. It's not an outdoor dog, you see? And I deliberately did that when I started my business to have safety in a situation like this. Well, if I wasn't handling my finances, I would be, bad too. But I don't have any fear, and we don't want you to have fear. Number 4, you said was.
What was number 4?
Okay, well, y'all gonna watch this video. You'll write it.
Yeah. I think it was talking about pivoting, right? So
yes, pivoting.
The lack of pivoting,
Okay, so know your industry well enough to pivot, and again, that goes with that ongoing building in your ongoing education into your workday, right? Or once a week, or regularly building it in, so you have the knowledge to pivot. And then number 5 is making sure that you understand how your money flows into the business, all of the expenditures that you have on your business, and how that works. So then you're not working yourself doing all these great things, and then you go to the tax preparer and he says you ain't got no money, right? And you
Right.
don't know why, right? So we want to make sure that. All right, so now that we've gotten that and we know the top 5 mistakes that people make in business, how can Black folks, right? How can Black folks keep more of their money? Now, people, they got their hustles out there and they're telling people, use the credit card to buy this so you can take that back and you can get the money in your account and you can do, that's
I've heard that
y'all to
too.
wind up in jail. Did y'all know that? And did you know that while they seem to have an alternate justice system for all kinds of other people in this country, they gonna put you in jail. They definitely gonna put you in jail.
I've heard that, and I'm like, wow. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's definitely some interesting subjects on how to secure a bag, get a bag, and I'm like, yeah, that's also borderline fraud, tax
Right.
evasion, I'm
Right.
like, wow.
Exactly. That,
Yeah.
come on now. But how can we keep that money?
The way to keep your money is to know your money. Like kind of like I said, the mistake that's made a lot of when I have conversations about, especially with those who are self-employed and the tracking of their money and what does it mean, nobody knows that. And I'm like, okay, well, let me show you an example of how, if you knew what your money was doing, how you could save money, right? And so the way we gonna save our money is to really know it. I have 3 young children, and I said, if you want money, you have to know how money works. Not the fact that it exists, but you have to know how it works. Why, how did I get this $100 bill in my hand? Why is it here with me right now? What were the things that led up to this arriving here in my hand right now? And once you have knowledge of that, it becomes a repeatable process, and therefore you get to grow that. 100 turns into 200, 2 into 4, 4 into 8, and we start to do that. But until we get a good understanding of how money works, we won't keep it. And then we have to stop trying to impress everybody. To me, that's one of the biggest things. Like I noticed, I think a couple of weeks ago, last month sometime, I took a deep dive into to some wealthy people, right? Like what do they do that's different than what the poor people do or the middle class do? What do the wealthy do? And the only thing that they do different than what we do is they don't spend. And if they do spend, they just simply reinvest it back into their company, or they invested, period. The wealthy don't go buying all these fancy name brand, big label things just to show other people that, hey, I got money. Because if you think about it, and that's enough, we really have to change the way we approach money mentally. Because if you think about it, the minute that you get money, then you go out and spend it to show people that you have it. You no longer have it. That's why I love my children, because we have these conversations, and I'm like, yeah, let's say you go get the Jordans, the newest Jordans, right? Those newest Jordans cost you $300. So now everybody sees you with the new Jordans and they're like, oh, you got money. I say, technically, no, you don't, because the money you had, you've now spent it.
Right.
So you don't have money. But it's the idea of, I need to look like I have money as opposed to actually having money.
Mhm.
So if we can get past that, we would have a lot more money. And if we understood how to collectively bargain it with each other, then we would have more money in our own mini ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I will say, there's an old saying, fake it till you make it. And I would say you need to make it so you don't have to fake it.
Right. I think that fake it till you make it is what caused the detriment to us, because we need to look the part.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are afraid to show that we're struggling. right? And we are afraid to show that, hey, I don't have it right now. You know, my kids talk about me, Dad, you don't buy clothes, you don't buy you won't have the latest gear. And I'm like, I probably will never, right? Because it's not important to me. I'm not necessarily concerned about my appearance, okay? Because my clothes don't make me, I make my clothes. Like, well, I got on a t-shirt and a blazer right now, right? So it's, I mean, but it's not important. I'd rather put the money towards something else.
Absolutely. And it's all about your value system. Okay.
Yeah.
And what I want to say to us Negroes with aptitude is that we need to be aware of how much of our value system has been sold to us, right?
Yes.
It's not the value system that we started out with. And we are the only group of people in this country who is actually organic to this land. And what I mean by that is although we are not immigrants, we are imports. Okay. We are not immigrants, we were imports. And we were brought here, but the grand experiment called America was sold onto us. So it's not the values that we came here with, but it's the values that were sold to us. Now what we need to do is break through that value system and get back to our own values, right? Which is having integrity, which is working hard, which is looking out for one another, which is being Negroes with aptitude, right? That's what it is. And I agree with you. You can look in my closet and there's no name brands in there. And basically where I came from was, you're not paying me to advertise your brand, so I'm not going to do it for free. Right. So let me get the ones with no label then. That's all right with me.
Yeah, I agree. And I know a lot of people want to know how to save money on taxes. Really, I would say I would really encourage you to have a real deep conversation with your tax professional, your accountant, your CPA, just to make sure that you are maximizing as much as you possibly can. I know a lot of times we just go in, hand them our paperwork. We have a conversation. How was the year? How's the family? How's the life? How's the kids? Well, that conversation needs to pivot to be less focused more on my finances. Here is what's happening. Here's what I want to happen. How do we make that happen? And from there, you'll be able to understand your financial situation and then develop budgets. You know, we have to become more disciplined with ourselves, right? Developing a budget gives you a kind of like a guideline, right? Like, I know how much I've set to spend. If I'm spending more than that, then I need to reevaluate, reflect, and be like, what's happening, right? So have a conversation with, like I said, your financial person. Make sure that you're maximizing all of everything that you can. Take advantage of all the 401ks if you're in a regular W-2 job. Make sure you're taking advantage of the employer matching. If you're solo, you know, look into some retirement accounts. You can get a solo 401k. Make sure that you're maxing that out, because what happens especially if you have certain type of business structures, your company can contribute to your retirement and then deduct it. So it's kind of like a win-win, right? But you don't know that if you're not having that type of conversation. If you're simply going in just talking about the generics, then that's what your accountant is going to talk to you about, the generics. But if you go in with that money conversation, then everything changes.
And just to dovetail on that, I think a little bit of the pivot has to be, a lot of times when people go into the tax preparer, they kind of go into like, oh, you know, like the tax preparer is a god, right? You know, because you just maneuver those numbers and I don't have to pay that much in taxes, or I'm getting such and such back in a check. Instead of being like, this tax preparer is an extension of your professional ecosystem, right?
Exactly.
And so you are going in with a certain amount of knowledge. You are going in of your industry or whatever it is that you do. And so now you're going to an extension of your professional ecosystem to talk with them about getting their insight on making your picture look the way you want it to look, which is what our uncle cousin just said here.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
So man, this has been so much fun, and the time has gone so quickly.
Has it? Oh wow, yeah.
It has really gone quickly, and I just can't thank you enough for joining us. And now you're seeing my little one's head popping up, being like, is there a walk coming anytime soon? How can we support you, Uncle Cousin, or Self-Employed Tax Guy? How can we connect with you, and how can we support you?
Well, if you want to support me, just educate yourself financially. That's like one of the greatest things you can do for me, is to make sure that you are aware of what's happening financially in your own situation. To connect with me, the best ways to find me on YouTube at the Self-Employed Tax Guy. Social media, I'll really be active on Instagram at the same handles, the Self-Employed Tax Guy. And that's really it. I mean, I have a website, right? The self-employedtaxguy.com, but I'm most active, like I said, YouTube, Instagram. That's where you can find me, connect, ask a question or two, and I'll be there to do my best to answer.
All right. So, you Negroes with aptitude, thank you for joining us on another Money Monday, where we celebrate our Black and African entrepreneurs, where we talk about how to get that bag, but in today's conversation, just as important, how to keep that bag.
Yes.
We want to say an extra thank you to our favorite Uncle Cousin.
That's me.
Tyrone Gregory, the Self-Employed Tax Guy. I'm your Negro with aptitude and host of the Blackboard, Mickee Lee. We will see you on Wednesday for Waste Not Wednesdays. Y'all have a good evening.